Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next BYOP. This is going to be the BYOP for April, so I'm excited to kind of switch out the color store that I had for March and pick something quite like Eastery, like lots of pastels, colors. At least that's my plan, but we'll see how it goes. Before I show you where I am with this palette and before I take all of the shades out, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family, but let's just jump into the video. This is the palette. Also, if you're wondering my finger, I did cut myself cooking the other day and I just have it like wrapped up so I won't rip it open or anything like that. It looks quite bad with this obviously on, but it was a deep cut, but I'm definitely fine, so don't worry about it. But I just thought I would clarify that in case you're wondering what that is. But this is the palette. I'm gonna open it up so you can see what it looks like. This is what my color story looked like. There was a different shade here, but I have taken that out because I'm currently not panning that anymore, so I switched out to something that I am panning. I have a few more shades here as well that I'm going to have to add into next month's color story, but I'm going to do all of that later. So let's start by focusing on the actual color story. I'm going to go through quickly how much I used each shade and talk you through each one. So the first shade in the palette is this one right here, which is a Cleona iridescent shade in the shade Glimmer. It's a beautiful like purple to blue shade, and I used this one twice. Then this obviously wasn't part of the color story, and the one that was here before was also not part of the color story. So the next one that I added in was the shade Space Case here from Terra Moons, and I used this one twice also. Again, we have another shade here that isn't part of my actual BYOP, but rather things that I'm panning, so let's skip over that one. And then the next one is my NYX Hot Pink, which is a polish shade from the In Your Element Air palette. I used this one once. Then we have the next shade, which is the shade Green Anjou from Sydney Grace. I used this one 3 times. Next to that we have another iridescent shade from Cleona. This one is in the shade Illumination, and I used this one 5 times, which is my most used shade in the past BYOP, and I really love that shade. I used it all over the lid and it was beautiful that way, like topped over like a bit of a, I think it was like an orangey matte, and that worked out beautifully. I loved it as an iconic highlight, and it's a really stunning shade. I love that one. And I don't think I ever used it before putting it into my BYOP, so yeah, I'm really happy that I did. Then next to that, and lastly on the second row, we have the shade Moontide from Terra Moons, and I used this one once. For the last row, we have the shade Overpacked from Colourpop, and I used this one once. We have Mary Jane from Colourpop, and I used this one once as well. Then we have Mobamba, again from Colourpop, and I used this one twice. And then lastly we have the shade Lineage from Cleona, and I used this one twice. So that is my color story for the month of March. I really enjoyed this one. I created some looks. I actually did palette bingo, and I rolled in quite a few shades from here. I rolled this one, and this one, so I created a look with those. And yeah, overall I just really enjoy this palette, but I'm also excited to switch this out and roll in some new shades. So I'm just going to take everything out of the palette and we can move on to picking some new shades. So I have emptied out the palette. Let me just clean it up quickly, and then we are ready to choose some new eyeshadows. I have quite a few shades that need to go back in this month, so I'm gonna kind of put them in as well, just so we know how much space we have, and then we can pick the color story from there. So I put in the shades now. This is probably not the way I'm going to keep them like layout wise, but I just put them in so that we have kind of an idea of what I can fit. So I'm going to move my palette to the side, and then we're going to put in some palettes that we can play with. So here we have my Cleona first eyeshadow palette, and honestly I don't think I'm going to pull anything from this palette because I already have 3 Cleona eyeshadows that I'm working on in different projects, like you can see them all here. So I don't think I'm going to pull anything from this palette at the moment. I might pull one of the kind of iridescent shades, but not one of the colored ones, because I feel like I have enough of my clear eyeshadows this month anyway. So this one can go to the side. I'm not going to pick anything from this one. We have the next clear eyeshadow palette right here, and this is actually not the one that I have clear eyeshadows in. This is my Terramoon shadows as well as some random ones down here. And I'm going to actually start by putting back all of the shades that I took out from here last month, just to, like, you know, put them back into place, and those are back. This one is the blue shade that I'm currently panning, so that can stay out. Do I want to add anything in here? I think I do. The shade that is really calling my name, just looking at the palette, is this shade right here. This is the shade Antares. It's a beautiful kind of shifty shade. It goes from like a pink to a green, and I think this is going to be really beautiful. It is somewhat similar to Sunbeam right here, but it's just a bit deeper, a bit, yeah, it's not exactly the same, so I think they still will complement each other, and I'm just feeling like these kind of more lighter kind of tones, and yeah, this one is just calling my name, so this one can go in the palette. And I think that will tie also these two shades together, so that's a nice one. I think, is there anything else I want to add in? I feel like obviously like having maybe this pastel purple would be nice, but I don't think I'm gonna add that in at the moment. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I don't want to overwhelm myself too much. Actually, this one, do I want to add that one in? That is such a beautiful shade. Actually, I do maybe want to add in this one too. This is the shade Ceres. I just swatched out on my hand right there. You can see it's such a stunning shade, and it is kind of like a pastel blue to like an orange shift, and it's really, really beautiful. So this one might also be a contender to put in, but it's going to go in my maybe palette to start with. So yeah, that is my second palette, and with that I think I'm pretty happy with this one. Then we have the last Cliona palette, which is where I have the rest of my Cliona eyeshadows as well as my Jelly Glow. So obviously I'm going to start by putting back the shades that I was using. So this one can go back in here, and then we also have the shade Illumination, which can go back here. So like I said, I feel like I want to add in some iridescent shades, but I don't know what shade yet. I don't know, maybe like a pinky shade would be nice, but also then I have Sunbeam, which I can also use in my inner corner. I feel like I want something like, you know, but Eastery. I don't know what to put in. So I think I'm gonna wait and come back to this palette once I know the rest of the color story and see what kind of inner corner shade I want. So I think that's gonna be it. I was also thinking about adding in one of these like really fun pop of colors. Like this green really speaks East to me, but I also have this green, for example, in a project at the moment that I need to use, so I think that's gonna be a bit overlap. Maybe that's something I can bring in for May instead. So yeah, I think I don't want to overwhelm myself with too many clear eyeshadows, so I think that's going to be it. I do, however, want to put back Lineage in its place, because that one goes with the vibrant monochromes right here. And yeah, that is going to be that palette, I believe, for now, and then I'm going to come back to the iridescent shades once I have a better idea of the color story. So let's scooch my clear eyeshadow palettes to the side and move on to some other ones. So I don't think I'm going to want to add anything in from this palette, but I do want to put some stuff back. Actually, that mint is just speaking to me now. But I think if I'm going to go for like a minty kind of color story, I'm going to go for this one here, because although it's not the same, I don't feel like blues and mints all the time. And I did have a lot of greens in this past month, so I think having a mint in now would be a bit overkill. But mints are also very Eastery shades. I'm looking at this one here, if you're wondering which one I'm looking at, and it is a stunning shade, and I'm just like, whenever would I wear mints if not this time of year? Do I want to add it in? I'm gonna again put it in my maybe pile because I'm not quite sure yet. I think it all depends on how many shadows I decide to add in, and with that maybe this one will go well as well if I don't find any other mint shade. Those two work really well together, so maybe that can go in my maybe pile as well. Although if I put like if I pick like a greenish Cliona multichrome, like the iridescent ones, I can probably switch that out instead of this one. But again, it's gonna go in my maybe pile for now, and then we're just gonna think about it and come back to it later on. We have my other Colourpop eyeshadow palette right here. And I don't think there's anything in here that I want to add in this necessarily this month, because it's a lot of neutrals and I don't really feel like adding in any neutrals at the moment, and like the other ones are more kind of warm toned, which I don't feel like at the moment either. So yeah, this one I'm gonna skip over this month, which I've done a lot of the time because it's just not very inspiring to me. Actually, the only thing I'm looking at now is actually this shade here. That could be quite nice as a spring color. Oh yeah, I'm actually quite happy with, I like that shade a lot, and I think that will go with Sunbeam. So maybe I should add that one and use to pick something from this palette, because I neglect this palette a lot. This is Kitten Fish from the It's My Pleasure palette. So let's just put this one in because I think that will go with the color story that I'm looking at. And yeah, like I said, I neglect that palette quite a lot, so let's add that one in. The other kind of sea palette that I have is another one that's easy to skip because I don't really want to add in any neutrals this month. No, none of these kind of spring to mind that I want to add in, so yeah, I'm gonna skip over this palette as well. Then we have my big Sydney Grace palettes. I have two of them. We have this one here, and then I also have this one. So let's just open the first one up and let's see what I have here. So this is obviously a more warm toned palette. I'm gonna add in the two shades that I've had out of this palette before, which is this kind of the potted NYX shade, as well as this press glitter from Colourpop. So those two can go back. And then it's about what I want to add in. I do feel like I want to add in a bit more kind of fun pastel-y colors. I mean, I have the purples, so I maybe don't want to add in any more purples. The kind of shade that I'm looking at now is this one here, which is a beautiful kind of shade. I think this one is from the Pastel Roses. It's not like a super pastel-y shade, but it's a beautiful, almost like iridescent kind of shade with an orange base. And this is the Electric Orange shade. It's beautiful, and I haven't really played around with this too much, but also that might overlap a bit with this orange here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna save that one for summer. Is there anything else that I'm thinking? I think this one is probably better because it's not as orangey. This is one of my Glam Shop shades, and this is in the shade Turbo Vata Secrova. And it's like an orange, hot orange kind of base with a pink shift, and it is more of a kind of sheer shadow, and it doesn't really have much of a base pigment. I don't know how well you can pick it up here. I think that one would work better because it has more of that pink shift and it doesn't really show up much of the orange shift. So I think that will still be different enough. So I think this one can be added in, you know, together with the rest of the color story, if I can find a good spot to place it. But yeah, that is going to be the next shade, and I think that is going to be it for this palette, because I don't think I want to add anything else specifically from this palette. So yeah, let's skip over this one and look at the last palette that I have. And that should be like the blue and green palette, and it is. And from here I'm gonna start by putting back the shade that I had out last month, and then I'm gonna add in some more eyeshadows. I think just looking at it, I will add in the mints because I feel like they will add a bit more kind of Eastery vibes, which is what I want. So I think these two can go in, and I think that's going to be quite nice, and I like that color story much better. What about this one? That will go quite well with those shades, won't it? But is it too much? I don't think it is, but I'm going to keep it out in case I do want to add in a few more shadows, because I only have space for two more. And I just need to think about what else I want to add in. Is there anything from this palette that really like speaks to me for this time of year? Actually, there's not really anything here that I want to add in because I have some blues already. I have the greens, or I mean mints, but mints are more kind of type of greens that I want to reach for in April. And I had a lot of greens in last month, so I don't want to add in like loads of these warm greens because I feel like that's a bit overkill with what I had last month. So I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to pick anything from this palette, and I'm going to add in Cirrus from Terra Moons. And then lastly, I'm going to pick a Cleon Iridescent shade and add in instead, and I think that's going to be my BYOP for the month. And there you have the palette. Now it's just come down to picking the right shade. I think like this one obviously isn't an iridescent shade, but I think it can kind of work as an iridescent shade if I need it, because it doesn't really have much base pigment. So I do have like a pinkish iridescent at the moment. This one here is Sunbeam from Cleona, which is also one that I'm panning, and that has more of that kind of goldenish shift, and again it doesn't have too much base pigment, so I think that will hit that kind of spot as well. So I don't really want to add in any pink iridescence or like goldy iridescence. Do I want to add in like a bluish or like a tealy color, maybe mints, maybe, because I do have these mints and like the blues as well, so maybe that would work well with that. I'm currently looking at this one. That looks quite nice. Yeah, that one is quite nice because it does have that green shift, but I feel like I've had that one in before because it does have a little bit of a dip in it. What about the one next to it? The one next to it is very close to Sunbeam. I don't know if you can pick that up on camera, so that's a no-go. This one here is more of an orange iridescent. Maybe I should go with that one instead, just to give something different. Because even if I go with a green one, it's very similar still to Sunbeam, but this orangey one, which one was it? This one, I think. It is a bit more kind of, I don't know, it's a bit different. I don't know how I can pick that up. But do I want to go with a smooth version or more of a kind of like chunky one? Because these two are very similar, just a bit more, like the top one is just a bit more textured. Maybe I do want to go with that one, so I'm gonna try to get this one out, but it is this shade here, and I think that's the one I'm gonna go with, which I think should be one of the series 2 iridescents, and that is the shade Halo, which is a beautiful shade. Like I said, it has that orangey shift to it, and it goes into like actually a green shift, which is going to be quite nice with the mints. It used to have like something different, you know. And I think this will pair really nicely as well with the eyeshadows that I'm panning in my Panda palette. So that is going to be the last shadow that I'm adding in, and with that I'm quite happy with my BYOP. So I'm gonna go ahead and put away all my palettes. I'm gonna see if I want to rearrange this little one at all, and if I do, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and swatch out my color story. So I was gonna rearrange the palette, but I actually don't think I am gonna. I think I was gonna move this one to like the next row or something and just rearrange it, but I'm quite happy with having the ones that I'm panning on top, and then yeah, having the other ones in other spaces. But while I was trying to rearrange, I also did some swatching just for fun, and I just want to show you something that's amazing. So this is the shade that I'm panning from the, like, it's Terramoon's shade in Azure Skies, and I decided to top it with the shade Halo. And this is exactly why I love the Cleona multichromes, like the iridescent shades, because look how beautiful that is on over the top. I really hope the camera can pick it up, but it's just such a stunning combination. Like, and then obviously it shifts as well, so where I'm sitting currently looking at this, the iridescent shade looks green, but obviously on camera hopefully it will look orange, and it's just such a stunning combination. So that's why I love those shades, and that is just the shade Halo over this blue. So that's why I like adding these iridescent shades in, because you can use them in your inner corners, you can use them in like over the top of other shadows, and yeah, I just love them. So that is going to be my palette. I'm going to go ahead and swatch this color story out, and then we're going to wrap up this video. So here you have it, my color story for April. I'm very happy with it. It's still pretty colorful, but it's just definitely some Easter colors in here. I think like the mint was probably a good idea, like I compared it with this one. I know it, like the layout on my hand swatched out probably isn't the best. I probably would have been better swatching this way, similarly to last time, because that's how I did it last time as well. But I used to like putting the color stories down this way. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. Granted that the first 5 here are colors that I am panning, so they needed to be included. If I cover those up, isn't that like the most Easter kind of color story you've ever seen? Like, and that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted some Easter colors to add in, and I think overall I'm very happy with the color story. I feel like it's going to be really fun to play with. I think this is going to be really nice pops of colors to incorporate with other looks and like with my panna palette and other palettes that I'm panning and other eyeshadows that I'm panning. So I'm very happy with this color story, and it's going to be nice to have a new BYOP to play with. So that is it for this today, you guys. This is the finished palette, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know which shade out of these is your favorite. It's impossible for me to pick one, to be honest. I love them all. Like this whole row, bottom row, like plus this one actually, like all of these 5 here are such special shades and I just love them. So I wouldn't be able to pick a favorite, but let me know down below which one is your favorite if you had to pick one. And otherwise, I really hope you're having a lovely day, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys.